A simple woman kicked out of car dealership. Next day, her billionaire husband's Rolls-Royce arrives. Aisha was a simple woman, known in her small neighborhood for her gentle nature and kind heart. She had never been a person who chased luxury or sought attention. Her life was quiet, filled with small joys, helping her neighbors, spending time with her husband Zayn, and tending to the little garden behind her modest home. Aisha believed in living a life of honesty, simplicity, and respect for everyone, no matter their social standing. She dressed plainly, preferring comfortable clothes over anything flashy, and she had a natural charm that came from her warmth and sincerity rather than her appearance. One bright morning, Aisha decided to visit the local car dealership. Her own car was old and often gave her trouble, and though she did not want a fancy car for herself, she thought it might be time to explore her options for something reliable. The thought of stepping into a place full of shiny, expensive vehicles made her nervous. She had never been to a luxury dealership before, and the tall glass windows and polished floors gave off an air of formality and wealth that she was not accustomed to. Yet, she held her head high, reminding herself that she had every right to be there just like anyone else. As she entered the dealership, her eyes widened at the sight of sleek cars lined up perfectly, each one glistening under the bright showroom lights. The smell of new leather and polished metal filled the air. Aisha could not help but admire them from a distance. She moved carefully, walking slowly, trying to observe and learn about the cars without feeling out of place. Almost immediately, a young salesman approached her, his smile polite but with a faint hint of condescension. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he asked. Aisha smiled back and explained gently, "I am just looking. I am thinking about a new car for daily use, nothing fancy. I just want to see what options are available." The salesman's expression shifted slightly, and he glanced at her plain clothes and simple demeanor. "Well, ma'am," he said with a polite but distant tone, "we usually cater to customers who are serious buyers. Are you really here to buy one of these cars?" Aisha felt a little sting at his words but remained calm. "Yes," she replied softly, "I am exploring my options. I might consider buying a car if it suits my needs." Despite her composed response, the salesman's attitude did not improve. He led her slowly through the showroom but barely looked at her, speaking to another colleague as if she were invisible. Aisha tried to ask questions about one of the mid-range cars, pointing to a model she thought she could afford if she ever decided to buy. The salesman answered her briefly but with an air of impatience, clearly uninterested in helping her. As she continued walking around, a senior staff member noticed her. He was a tall man with a sharp suit and an expression that seemed to judge everyone immediately. He walked up to her and said in a firm tone, "Excuse me, ma'am. You cannot stay here if you are not a serious buyer. This is a high-end dealership. Please leave." Aisha froze. She had expected some skepticism, maybe some polite discouragement, but she had never expected such rudeness. She looked at him, her eyes calm but her heart beating faster. "I am allowed to look, aren't I?" she asked gently. The man's expression hardened. "This is a place for serious customers only. You don't look like someone who belongs here. I'm asking you politely leave the premises." For a moment, Aisha felt her cheeks burn. She had never felt so humiliated in her life. People were staring at her, some whispering, some avoiding eye contact. She realized that the judgment in the room was not about her personality or intentions, it was about her appearance. She was dressed simply, without makeup or expensive jewelry, and the staff had made their assumptions. Aisha took a deep breath, holding back the hurt and anger rising inside her. She knew that losing her temper would not help. She smiled faintly, her hands folded calmly in front of her. "I will leave," she said, her voice steady, though her heart ached. "But I hope you remember that not everything valuable comes with a flashy appearance. People should be treated with respect, no matter how they look." She turned and walked slowly toward the exit. Each step felt heavier than the last, but she maintained her composure. Outside, the sunlight felt warm and comforting, and for the first time in minutes, she let herself breathe freely. She paused for a moment, looking back at the tall glass doors of the dealership. A part of her wanted to storm back in and demand an apology, but she knew that it would only fuel their arrogance. Instead, she whispered to herself, "This does not define me. I am worth more than their judgment." As Aisha walked down the street, her mind wandered to her husband, Zayn. He was a man of quiet power and incredible wealth, though they lived a simple life together. He had never flaunted his success, preferring that they remain grounded and humble. Aisha thought about how different her life was from what people might assume just by looking at her. She realized that wealth was often misunderstood, and appearances were deceiving. People judge too quickly without knowing the full story. By the time she reached a small cafe nearby, Aisha had calmed herself further. She ordered a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the world move around her. She noticed people rushing past, some glancing at her curiously, others too busy to notice. She smiled softly, reflecting on the irony of the situation. Here she was, dismissed by strangers for her appearance, and yet she was married to a man who could buy anything in that showroom and more. Her thoughts were interrupted when her friend Lena called. Lena noticed immediately that Aisha's voice carried a hint of sadness. "What happened?" she asked. Aisha recounted the events at the dealership, her words measured but filled with the sting of humiliation. Lena gasped. "How dare they treat you like that? You should have told them who you are." Aisha chuckled softly. "It's not about proving anything. I didn't let their words affect me. I just learned that people will judge without knowing, and that's their weakness, not mine." After the call, Aisha finished her tea and decided to take a walk through the nearby park. The greenery and fresh air helped her thoughts settle. She thought about her life, the small joys, the love she shared with her husband, and the respect she had for herself. Though she had faced humiliation, she realized that the experience had strengthened her. It reminded her that dignity was far more important than appearances or the approval of strangers. As the sun began to set, Aisha returned home. She entered the familiar comfort of her modest house, where the scent of fresh flowers and home-cooked meals greeted her. Zayn was already home, sitting in the living room reading. He looked up and smiled warmly. "How was your day?" he asked, unaware of the small storm of emotions she had endured. Aisha sat down beside him and smiled. "It was a lesson," she replied, her eyes twinkling with quiet resilience. She did not tell him the whole story yet, but she knew that tomorrow, life might bring its own surprises. That night, as Aisha lay in bed, she thought about the people at the dealership and their assumptions. She realized that their rudeness reflected more on their character than hers. She drifted to sleep with a sense of calm determination, knowing that her self-worth was intact, no matter what anyone else thought. The day had been difficult, but it had also reminded her of her strength, her grace, and the life she had built, one rooted in simplicity, love, and respect. The morning after the incident at the dealership, Aisha woke up feeling a mix of emotions. She was still slightly hurt by what had happened, but she also felt a quiet determination growing inside her. She refused to let the rude behavior of strangers dictate her mood or her sense of self-worth. As she stretched and looked out the window, the familiar sights of her small garden and the quiet street reminded her of the life she cherished, a life full of love, simplicity, and peace. Aisha made her way to the kitchen to prepare breakfast, humming softly to herself. She thought about the previous day, recalling every detail of the dealership encounter. She remembered the polished floors, the gleaming cars, and the way the staff had ignored her, as if she didn't belong. Their words had stung, but she reminded herself that their judgment said more about them than about her. She was a woman of dignity, a woman who lived her life with honesty and grace. While preparing tea, Aisha picked up her phone and called her close friend, Lena. Lena had always been someone who could lift her spirits, offering both comfort and perspective. "Good morning," Aisha said, trying to sound cheerful. "Morning, Aisha. How are you feeling today?" Lena asked. There was a note of concern in her voice, as if she had sensed Aisha's lingering sadness from the previous day. Aisha smiled. "Better," she replied softly. "Yesterday was an experience. It reminded me how quick people are to judge, just by appearances. But I'm learning to let it go." Lena laughed gently. "You are far stronger than most people give you credit for. Don't let anyone make you feel small. You know your worth, and that's what matters." Their conversation continued for a while, filled with laughter and encouragement. By the end of the call, Aisha felt lighter. She realized that dwelling on humiliation would only drain her energy, while focusing on her strengths and values would empower her. After finishing breakfast, Aisha decided to spend some time tending to her garden. Gardening had always been a source of comfort for her, a place where she could think clearly and find peace. As she trimmed the flowers and watered the plants, she reflected on her life and the choices she had made. Despite living modestly, she had a rich life in terms of love, kindness, and happiness. She had a supportive husband, loyal friends, and a community that appreciated her gentle nature. Aisha's thoughts naturally drifted to her husband, Zayn. She smiled as she thought about him, how he worked tirelessly to build his business empire, yet chose to live simply with her. He never flaunted his wealth, never made her feel that their life was ordinary or lacking. Instead, he focused on what truly mattered: love, respect, and happiness. Aisha felt grateful for him every day. As the morning turned into afternoon, Aisha decided to take a walk to clear her mind further. She enjoyed these walks, which allowed her to observe people and life around her without distraction. She noticed the children playing in the park, the shopkeepers arranging their goods, and the elderly couple sitting on a bench, holding hands. All of it reminded her that life's true value was in these simple moments, not in luxury cars or flashy appearances. Yet, even as she appreciated these simple joys, she couldn't help but think about the dealership and the disrespect she had faced. She realized that many people judged others too quickly, assuming that wealth or appearance determined a person's importance. She felt a sense of quiet anger at the unfairness, but she also knew that anger would not serve her. Instead, she focused on learning from the experience. She promised herself that she would carry her dignity with her, no matter what others thought. During her walk, she passed a small cafe and decided to stop for a cup of tea. Sitting by the window, she watched the world go by and reflected on the values she wanted to hold onto. She thought about patience, humility, and resilience. These qualities had served her well, and she knew they would continue to do so. The dealership incident, though unpleasant, had reminded her of the importance of self-respect and inner strength. When she returned home, Zayn was already there, finishing some work on his laptop. He looked up as she entered, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. "How was your walk?" he asked warmly. Aisha smiled and walked over to him. "Refreshing," she replied. "I needed to think and clear my mind." She hesitated for a moment, then added, "Yesterday was difficult. Something happened at the dealership." Zayn closed his laptop and gave her his full attention. "What happened?" he asked gently. Aisha recounted the entire story, from the moment she entered the showroom to the moment she was politely, but harshly, asked to leave. She described the way the staff had judged her appearance, their assumptions, and the embarrassment she had felt. Zayn listened quietly, his expression serious but calm. When she finished, he took her hand and said, "I'm so sorry that happened to you. You didn't deserve that." People can be blind to kindness and character, focusing only on appearances or assumptions. Aisha nodded. "I know," she said softly. "It hurt, but I also learned something important. I realized that my value is not determined by what others think of me. I have to stay true to myself. Zayn smiled and squeezed her hand. Exactly. And you are one of the most remarkable people I know, not because of wealth or status, but because of your heart, your integrity, and the way you treat others. That is something no one can take away from you. Aisha felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. It was a reminder that true love and respect were far more meaningful than any luxury or material possession. She realized that she had been fortunate not only in the life she led but also in the husband she had chosen, someone who valued her for who she was, not what she looked like. Later that afternoon, Aisha decided to write in her journal. Writing had always been a way for her to process her thoughts and emotions. She wrote about the dealership incident, about her feelings of humiliation and resilience, and about the lessons she had learned. She reflected on the importance of inner strength, the value of simplicity, and the way kindness could shine brighter than wealth. As she wrote, she felt a sense of clarity. She knew that the incident at the dealership was not just a personal experience, it was a reflection of a larger reality. Many people were judged unfairly every day, and many were overlooked simply because they did not fit into society's narrow standards of appearance or status. Aisha decided that she would use this experience not for anger, but as a reminder to continue living her life with dignity and compassion. By the evening, the sky had turned a soft shade of orange, and Aisha felt a calm sense of peace. She prepared dinner for herself and Zayn, enjoying the simple act of cooking together. They talked about their day, their dreams, and the small plans they had for the future. Aisha realized that her life, though modest, was rich in meaning. The love she shared with Zayn, the respect she had for herself, and the simple joys of daily life were treasures that no wealth could replace. As night fell, Aisha sat by the window, looking out at the quiet street. She thought about the day ahead and the lessons she had learned. She knew that life could be unpredictable, but she also knew that she had the strength to face whatever came her way. The dealership incident had been unpleasant, but it had also been a reminder of her resilience, her self-respect, and the importance of remaining true to herself. Finally, as she prepared to go to bed, Aisha whispered to herself, "No one can take away my dignity. No one can make me feel small unless I allow them to. I am enough, just as I am." With that thought, she drifted to sleep, feeling empowered, calm, and ready for whatever surprises life might bring her tomorrow. The next morning, Aisha woke up feeling unusually lighthearted. The memory of the previous day's humiliation at the dealership still lingered, but it no longer held the power to upset her. She felt strong, calm, and ready to face whatever the day might bring. The sun streamed softly through the window, filling the room with warmth and light. Aisha took a deep breath, enjoying the quiet comfort of her home and the familiar surroundings that made her feel at peace. She started her morning with her usual routine, making tea, preparing breakfast, and tending to her small garden. As she moved through her daily tasks, she reflected on her life with gratitude. She had a husband who loved her deeply, friends who supported her, and a simple life filled with meaning and purpose. Despite the dealership incident, she realized that she was surrounded by richness that no money could buy. After finishing her breakfast, Aisha decided to step outside for a brief walk before the day became busy. She enjoyed these quiet moments, where she could observe the world without distraction. As she strolled along the familiar street, she noticed the small details: the gentle sway of tree branches, the laughter of children playing in the distance, and the soft hum of daily life unfolding around her. Everything seemed calm, peaceful, and ordinary. Suddenly, a low, powerful sound caught her attention. It was different from the usual traffic, softer than a motorcycle, and smoother than a regular car engine. Aisha paused mid-step, her curiosity piqued. The sound grew louder, approaching from the street ahead. She turned toward the noise, expecting to see an ordinary vehicle, perhaps a delivery van or a car she hadn't noticed before. Instead, her eyes widened in surprise. Glinting in the morning sun was a brand new Rolls-Royce, its polished surface shining brilliantly, the deep metallic paint reflecting light like liquid silver. The car rolled slowly down the street, commanding attention with its elegant presence. Aisha instinctively covered her mouth in shock. She had never seen a car like this up close, and yet, there it was, stopping right in front of her modest home. As she stepped closer, she noticed the driver slowly opening the door and gesturing politely. Aisha's heart raced with a mix of disbelief and curiosity. The car's sleek lines, the pristine leather interior, and the unmistakable luxury made it clear that this was no ordinary vehicle. It was a symbol of opulence, wealth, and status. And yet, in that moment, Aisha felt a quiet sense of irony. She remembered the dealership, the condescending staff, and their judgment. They had mocked her just yesterday for even looking at a car they assumed she could never afford. Aisha's thoughts were interrupted by the soft click of the passenger door opening. Out stepped her husband, Zayn, looking calm and composed as always. He was dressed simply, as he usually was, but the sight of him standing next to the Rolls-Royce was a striking contrast. Aisha's mouth fell open, a mixture of surprise, amusement, and delight crossing her face. Zayn smiled warmly as he approached her. "Good morning," he said, his voice gentle and calm. "I thought you might enjoy a little surprise today." Aisha blinked, trying to process the moment. "Zayn, is this yours?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly with excitement and disbelief. He nodded, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "Yes. I thought it might cheer you up after yesterday. I know how much it hurt to be dismissed at the dealership, and I wanted to show you something." Aisha's hands went to her cheeks as she laughed softly, a mixture of joy and disbelief. I don't know what to say. It's beautiful," she exclaimed. She walked around the car slowly, her fingers brushing over the polished exterior, marveling at the craftsmanship, the elegance, and the undeniable presence of the vehicle. Zayn watched her with a soft smile. "It's not just about the car," he said gently. "It's about showing you that your worth is never measured by what others think or assume. You deserve respect, love, and appreciation, not judgment or rudeness. And sometimes, a little reminder can't hurt." Aisha turned to him, her eyes shining. "It's perfect," she whispered. "Not just the car, but you. You always know how to make me feel valued, loved, and respected. I don't need a Rolls-Royce to know that, but this is incredible." Zayn chuckled softly. "I know. I just thought it might be fun and maybe a little poetic justice for the dealership staff." Aisha laughed, imagining the faces of the dealership employees if they had seen the Rolls-Royce parked outside her home. The thought filled her with a warm sense of satisfaction, not of revenge, but of irony and poetic fairness. They had judged her based on appearances, and now the very car they assumed she could never be associated with was right in her driveway, thanks to the husband they had never even met. As she admired the car, Aisha thought about her own journey and her values. She realized that while wealth and luxury were impressive, they were not the most important things in life. What mattered most was integrity, kindness, and respect, qualities she had always held dear. The Rolls-Royce, while extravagant, was also a symbol of love and thoughtfulness, a reminder that she was cherished not for her appearance, but for who she was. The morning passed with Aisha exploring the car, sitting in the plush leather seats, and even pretending to drive it for a few moments. Zayn watched her with quiet amusement, enjoying her genuine excitement and the delight that came from experiencing something so luxurious for the first time. The car, while extravagant, became a shared experience, a moment of joy and connection between them, far more meaningful than the object itself. Later in the day, neighbors began to notice the Rolls-Royce parked in front of Aisha's modest home. Whispers and curious glances followed as people peeked over fences and leaned out of windows. Aisha waved politely, her heart light with humor and satisfaction. The irony of the situation was not lost on her. The very people who had judged her harshly at the dealership were now confronted with a scene they could never have anticipated. Despite the attention, Aisha remained calm and composed. She understood that showing off or boasting was unnecessary. The Rolls-Royce was not a tool for arrogance, it was a reminder of her husband's love and her own dignity. She walked through the yard with confidence, smiling to herself, knowing that she had faced humiliation and come out stronger, with grace and resilience intact. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the neighborhood, Aisha sat on her porch, reflecting on the morning's events. She realized that life had a way of teaching lessons in unexpected ways. Yesterday had been a moment of humiliation and discomfort, but today had brought a reminder of love, respect, and the importance of staying true to oneself. She understood that dignity and kindness were more powerful than judgment and assumptions. When Zayn joined her on the porch, they sat together in comfortable silence, enjoying the warmth of the evening. The Rolls-Royce gleamed quietly in the driveway, a symbol of elegance, love, and the quiet strength that Aisha had always possessed. She looked at her husband and smiled, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly. "Not just for the car, but for everything. For seeing me, for valuing me, and for reminding me that appearances are never the measure of a person." Zayn took her hand and smiled. "You don't need reminders to know your worth," he said. "But sometimes, the world does need a little nudge to see it too." Aisha laughed softly, leaning against him. The car, the irony, the attention from neighbors, it all faded into the background. What mattered most was the love they shared, the respect they had for one another, and the quiet confidence that came from knowing that true value is measured by character, not appearances. As night fell and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Aisha felt a sense of calm and joy unlike anything she had experienced before. The events of the past 2 days had been a roller coaster of emotions, from humiliation to reflection to delight, but she had navigated them with grace. She realized that life's surprises, both challenging and joyful, were opportunities to grow, to learn, and to embrace one's true self. That night, as she went to bed, Aisha whispered to herself, "I am enough. I am valued. I am respected. And tomorrow, life will bring its own lessons and joys, just as it always does." With that thought, she drifted into a peaceful sleep, her heart light, her spirit strong, and her mind filled with anticipation for the days ahead. The morning after the Rolls-Royce arrived, Aisha woke with a quiet sense of amusement. She had never expected such a turn of events, and the memory of yesterday's humiliation at the dealership now seemed almost distant. She moved through her morning routine with her usual grace, preparing breakfast and tending to her small garden, but a subtle excitement lingered in the air. Today felt different, as if life itself had decided to make a small, playful statement about respect, dignity, and the irony of appearances. As Aisha stepped outside to water her flowers, she noticed the neighbors gathering subtly along the street. Whispers of curiosity floated through the air. Everyone had seen the gleaming Rolls-Royce parked in front of her modest home, and it had captured their attention completely. People peeked through their windows and leaned slightly over fences to get a better view. Aisha smiled gently, realizing that the car had become a quiet spectacle in her otherwise calm neighborhood. She continued her morning with a sense of calm pride. The luxury of the vehicle did not change who she was, nor did it alter the simplicity of her life. She moved with natural ease, watering the roses and trimming the edges of her garden, all while listening to the soft murmur of neighbors gossiping about the car. She did not feel the need to explain or justify anything, her presence and composure spoke for themselves. Later in the morning, Aisha decided to take a small drive. She wanted to enjoy the car but also show herself that it could be experienced without pride or extravagance. Sitting behind the wheel, she felt a sense of empowerment and freedom. The Rolls-Royce was smooth, elegant, and powerful, yet she navigated it with the same care she applied to her own humble vehicle. She understood that luxury did not diminish humility, instead, It could coexist with grace when approached with the right mindset. When she returned home, Aisha made a quiet decision. She would visit the dealership not to confront them with anger, but to demonstrate the value of dignity and kindness. After all, the incident had been about judgment and assumptions, and she believed that sometimes, people needed a gentle reminder about respect. She wanted to show them that a person's worth was not tied to clothing, appearance, or the assumptions of strangers. Arriving at the dealership, Aisha stepped out of the Rolls-Royce calmly. Her posture was poised, her expression serene, and she carried herself with a quiet confidence that immediately drew attention. The receptionist's eyes widened when she entered, and the staff paused their conversations. Aisha's presence commanded respect without a word. A young salesman approached, his polite smile faltering slightly as he recognized her. "Good morning, ma'am," he said cautiously. Aisha smiled gently. "Good morning," she replied. "I hope I am not disturbing anyone." Her tone was warm and calm, but carried a subtle weight of authority. The manager of the dealership, who had dismissed her rudely the day before, noticed her entrance and immediately straightened. His eyes widened as he saw the Rolls-Royce parked outside and the serene composure of the woman he had underestimated. For the first time, he felt a flicker of doubt about the assumptions he had made. Aisha walked toward him slowly, her smile never wavering. "Yesterday, I visited your dealership," she said quietly. "I was dismissed because of how I looked and the assumptions you made about me. Today, I am here to remind you that respect and kindness are far more important than assumptions or appearances." The manager opened his mouth to respond but found himself at a loss for words. He had never imagined that the woman he had judged so quickly would return so composed, so dignified, and with such an unmistakable demonstration of grace. Aisha continued, her voice calm and steady. "I am not here to seek revenge or to make anyone feel embarrassed. I am here to show that the true measure of a person's worth is not in their clothes, their car, or their appearance. It is in their character, their integrity, and the way they treat others." The staff exchanged glances, suddenly aware of the lesson unfolding before them. The Rolls-Royce outside was more than just a car. It was a statement of irony and subtle justice, but it was Aisha's calm and respectful demeanor that truly commanded attention. She did not gloat, she did not boast, yet her presence alone communicated the message with clarity and elegance. After a moment of silence, the manager cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he said carefully, we apologize for our behavior yesterday. We made an assumption, and it was wrong. You deserved respect, and we failed to provide it." Aisha nodded, accepting the apology gracefully. "Thank you," she said. "I believe everyone deserves a chance to learn, and I hope that this experience reminds your staff to treat every person with dignity, no matter how they appear." The manager nodded solemnly. "It will not happen again," he promised. "Thank you for coming back and showing us the right way to handle situations like this." With that, Aisha turned and walked toward the door. She paused for a moment, casting a gentle glance over her shoulder. "Remember," she said softly, "kindness and respect are always remembered, even when assumptions are forgotten." Then she stepped out, her calm composure leaving a lasting impression on everyone inside. As she returned to her Rolls-Royce, neighbors who had seen her arrival applauded quietly, impressed not just by the luxury car, but by the dignity and poise with which she had carried herself. Aisha waved politely, feeling a sense of quiet satisfaction. The dealership staff would remember this day not for embarrassment or shame, but for the lesson in grace, humility, and respect that Aisha had delivered effortlessly. Back at home, Aisha and Zayn shared a quiet laugh over the morning's events. "You handled that perfectly," Zayn said, his eyes shining with pride. "You didn't need to say much, yet the message was clear. I'm proud of you." Aisha smiled, leaning against him. "I didn't want to embarrass anyone. I just wanted to show that dignity and kindness are more powerful than judgment and assumptions." Yesterday was painful, but today was a reminder that staying true to yourself always matters. They spent the rest of the afternoon in their garden, enjoying each other's company, the warmth of the sun, and the quiet satisfaction of having faced challenges with grace. Aisha reflected on the dealership experience once more and realized that life had a way of teaching lessons, sometimes through embarrassment, sometimes through subtle reminders, and sometimes through the kindness and support of those who truly mattered. Later, as evening approached, Aisha sat on her porch, looking out at the quiet street. The Rolls-Royce remained parked outside, gleaming in the fading light. She felt a sense of contentment that went far beyond material wealth. The car was beautiful, yes, but it was the experience, the lesson, and the love from her husband that truly mattered. She understood now that life's true richness came from respect, kindness, and the courage to remain calm and composed in the face of adversity. Aisha thought about the dealership staff and the lesson they had learned. She hoped they would carry it forward, treating others with the respect they deserved. But more importantly, she realized that the experience had reinforced her own values. She had handled humiliation with grace, faced assumptions with dignity, and responded to irony with calm confidence. She had emerged stronger, wiser, and more self-assured. That night, as Aisha prepared for bed, she reflected on the day with gratitude. She had turned a moment of discomfort into an opportunity for teaching, for showing respect, and for embodying the very values she held dear. She whispered to herself, "Life is full of lessons, and grace is the way to learn them. I will carry this strength with me, no matter what comes next." With that thought, Aisha drifted into a peaceful sleep, her heart full of calm satisfaction, her mind clear and focused, and her spirit strengthened by the knowledge that true dignity could never be taken away by anyone. The morning after her visit to the dealership, Aisha woke up with a light heart and a quiet sense of fulfillment. She felt as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. The events of the last few days, from the humiliation at the dealership to the arrival of the Rolls-Royce and the graceful lesson she had delivered, had changed her in ways she could hardly have imagined. She realized that true strength came not from wealth or power, but from dignity, resilience, and the ability to remain calm and kind in the face of unfairness. Aisha moved through her morning routine with ease, preparing breakfast for herself and Zayn while humming a gentle tune. The sun streamed through the window, illuminating the simple beauty of her home. The garden outside was thriving, the flowers bright and colorful, reflecting the calm and positivity that now filled her heart. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for the life she led, one that, though modest in material terms, was rich in love, understanding, and meaning. As she served breakfast, Zayn joined her at the table, smiling warmly. "You've handled everything so gracefully," he said, his eyes reflecting pride and admiration. "I'm amazed by the way you turned a difficult situation into a lesson for everyone involved. You didn't just stand up for yourself, you showed everyone the value of dignity." Aisha smiled, feeling a soft warmth spread through her chest. "I realized yesterday that humiliation can be an opportunity," she said thoughtfully. "It's easy to get angry or upset, but those reactions rarely help. Calmness, confidence, and kindness, they speak louder than anger ever could. And people remember that more than anything else." Zayn nodded in agreement. "Exactly. And you did it so naturally. You didn't need to prove anything, yet you made sure the lesson was clear. That's true strength." After breakfast, Aisha decided to take a quiet walk through the neighborhood, accompanied by Zayn. The streets were calm, and the early morning air was filled with the subtle sounds of life, birds chirping, leaves rustling, and the occasional greeting from neighbors. As they walked, people greeted them warmly, their curiosity about the Rolls-Royce having faded into genuine admiration for Aisha's composure and humility. Aisha noticed how the events of the past few days had subtly shifted the way people perceived her. There were no whispers of judgment now, only smiles of respect. She realized that handling situations with grace and integrity had a far more lasting impact than any display of wealth or status. The incident at the dealership had been a lesson not just for the staff, but for the community as well. It reminded everyone that kindness, dignity, and humility were far more powerful than arrogance or assumptions. As they continued their walk, Aisha reflected on the lessons she had learned personally. She realized that life would always present moments of challenge and discomfort, but the way she responded to them defined her true character. Yesterday's humiliation, while painful, had strengthened her. The arrival of the Rolls-Royce, while impressive, had reminded her that material wealth was fleeting and secondary to the values she cherished. And the response at the dealership had confirmed that respect and kindness could leave a far more lasting mark than any judgment or insult. Later in the day, Aisha returned home and spent time tending to her garden, reading, and reflecting quietly. She found herself thinking about the broader implications of her experiences. So many people, she realized, were judged unfairly every day. Appearances, social status, and material possessions often dictated how others treated them. But she also understood that this was not a reason to change who she was. It was an opportunity to demonstrate the power of integrity and grace. She vowed to continue living her life in a way that reflected her true values, regardless of what others might think. In the afternoon, Zayn suggested they host a small gathering for close friends and family. He wanted them to celebrate life, love, and the lessons they had learned together. Aisha agreed, seeing it as an opportunity to share the joy and positivity she felt. As the guests arrived, they were greeted with warmth, laughter, and the gentle elegance of a home filled with love rather than ostentation. During the gathering, Aisha shared some of her reflections with their friends. She spoke about the dealership, about how quickly people judged her, and about the lessons she had learned. "It's not the things we own or the way we look that define us," she said. "It's how we treat others, how we carry ourselves, and how we respond to challenges. Humiliation can become empowerment if we face it with grace and dignity." Her words resonated deeply with everyone present. Friends and family complimented her on her poise, her resilience, and the clarity with which she had turned a negative experience into a positive lesson. Many admitted that they often judged others too quickly and that Aisha's story reminded them of the importance of compassion and humility. As evening approached, Aisha and Zayn stepped outside to admire the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of gold and pink, reflecting the calm and beauty of their lives. The Rolls-Royce, parked gracefully in the driveway, shimmered softly in the fading light, a quiet symbol of love and thoughtfulness rather than pride or showmanship. Aisha turned to Zayn, her eyes reflecting gratitude and joy. "Thank you," she said softly. "Not just for the car, but for everything. For standing by me, for valuing me, and for reminding me that life's true wealth lies in love, respect, and integrity." Zayn smiled, taking her hand gently. "You don't need thanks for being who you are," he replied. "But I'm glad you see the message. True value is never measured by what others assume or judge. It's seen in actions, character, and the way we treat the world around us." Aisha leaned against him, feeling a sense of completeness that she had rarely experienced. The challenges, the irony, and the lessons of the past few days had all come together to teach her something essential: life's richest rewards were not material, but emotional, moral, and spiritual. She had faced judgment, humiliation, and assumptions, yet she had emerged stronger, more confident, and deeply fulfilled. As night fell, the neighborhood quieted, and Aisha and Zayn retired indoors. She reflected on the journey she had taken in such a short period: the humiliation at the dealership, the arrival of the Rolls-Royce, the lessons she had delivered, and the respect she had earned. Each moment had contributed to her personal growth, her understanding of the world, and her appreciation of the life she shared with her husband. Before going to bed, Aisha took a quiet moment to write in her journal. She described the events of the past days, her thoughts, feelings, and the lessons she had learned. Writing allowed her to process her experiences fully and to capture the growth she had achieved. She wrote about dignity, resilience, kindness, and love, and how these qualities had transformed what could have been a purely negative experience into a profound journey of empowerment. Finally, as she lay in bed, Aisha whispered softly to herself, "I am enough. I am valued. I am loved. And tomorrow will bring its own lessons and joys, just as today has." She closed her eyes, feeling a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. The events of the past days had reminded her of life's essential truths, that true wealth lies in love, integrity, and the quiet strength to remain calm and kind in the face of adversity. With that thought, Aisha drifted into a peaceful sleep, her heart full, her mind clear, and her spirit strengthened. She knew that whatever challenges or surprises life might bring, she would face them with grace, dignity, and the confidence that came from knowing her own worth. And in that quiet, simple life, surrounded by love and respect, she found the richest happiness imaginable, far beyond anything money could buy.